This video is sponsored by Ceramic Objects. Alright, hola all, welcome back to Soul Mechanics finally. There's still very much that needs to be taken care of here, including me getting a fucking haircut. I look like an asshole. Anyways, to begin, I'd like to apologize for our magical disappearing ending. In the previous video, what had transpired is we got a notice whilst we were recording for our niece. She needed us to pick her up, and mind you, this is like 6 in the morning, so you know, we were pretty beat, and we needed to make sure she was okay. So we went to go pick her up, and whilst we were driving, I think it might have been like the general awareness, the realization of how far I actually had to go on foot in how cold it was outside, how terrifyingly cold and windy it was outside, just hit me, and suddenly the impact of having spent that time, 4, 5, 6 maybe days awake with no food, no rest, you know, it all piled on me all at once, and I just seriously started having like a breakdown, a panic attack. I was hallucinating. I was seeing like trails and shit. It was pretty bad. I actually did start like tripping out there. So I guess that's a little extra added push to kind of give up the experiments for a little while, especially as regards the work situation. I can't afford to be doing that, so I do apologize to anybody who is interested in that. I will make an effort to reveal some of the other revelations that we might have missed regarding the experiments in the past, and of course I do have other such sorts of experiments plotted out that are not so time sensitive, that will, you know, this break from that particular facet of the experimentation will allot for me to actually implement these other facets that I have in mind, which are likely going to be even more effective, though not as revelatory, I suppose you could say. Anyways, to continue that story, to cap it off, there were some things I wanted to say regarding reincarnation and the kids' reincarnation thing. Hopefully you guys checked out that clip that I did link in the description eventually. I also apologize for being so late on that. I mean, this was just a bad scenario. Everything was we were in very hazardous territory for that last video, so everything kind of went wrong, but I do believe we managed it to some extent. But as I was saying, there's a lot I wanted to say regarding reincarnation, but I'm thinking we'll wait for Sweetie Cheeks to get back on board for that, because she's part of the discussion, and it does affect her directly, and we'd like her input. But to commence with the story, to catch us up first, what had happened was I had been awake for roundabouts 5 days, and running and going, and I had worked even 2 days during that phase, and the second day was that previous night where I had set a tray of ceramic dishes up on the drying rack because one of my team members, one of my crew members, Megan, had told me, do not place things near the edge. Like, she said it very strictly. Don't put things near the edge. They will fall off, she said. They absolutely will fall off. And I didn't realize she was talking about everywhere, because she was talking about the table at the time. Obviously, I presumed that the drying rack, being that it's ostensibly for drying things, that if I put things up there to dry, that's where they'll remain. And so I put them up there. I was doing a particularly good job. I had saved a resident from being poisoned. I had managed to do things almost perfectly and keep up with everything up to that point. I was feeling really good about it. My boss had told me, you know, that she's going to look out for my job, that I don't have anything to worry about so long as I show up and put my all into it, that she'll keep me there. And it was just very enlightened time, and I was very happy about it, and I was dancing around. I was you know, reciting to myself what I had intended to say in the video, and renouncing, or not renouncing, but resounding what my boss had told me. I was very happy about it, and as I stated in the previous video, during this personal commentary, I had restated what she said to me that was so inspiring and motivating, and it was actually punctuated by these dishes just kind of meandering off the edge in my peripheral and smashing at my feet. and it turned out to be 16. I was wrong about the count. I guess it looked like a lot more to me, but it turned out to be 16 dishes in total that were smashed, ceramic dishes. So we won't do that again. We'll keep things off of the drying rack that are smashable for the most part, and then we're doing fairly well. I did make a few. I did a few things pretty awesome the past couple of days I was there since then, but I also made a few mistakes. So I don't know. And I left actually one of the times. I thought that I was done. Like my boss had told me, "You're all done. Get going. I took care of business, got everything done." And I guess there was wrapping of the silverware that needed to be done that I'd forgotten about. I didn't know. I hadn't done that before. Somebody else had always handled that while I was doing the dishes. So it didn't even register. It was something. It was not a task that I was charged with in the past. So I left, and it turned out that I had left Megan and another girl there to do that work when they weren't supposed to. Like, they could have left, but they were stuck with it. Anyways, I get halfway to the damn rapid station before I get a call to come back in. I go back in. Now, what had happened that day in the morning, I went to the train station. I went to the train station. I was waiting on Richard. Richard said that he was going to come. He was going to spot me a ticket so I didn't have to boost the rapid, because I've gotten caught with that before without a ticket and gotten fined, which is a pretty spectacular story in and of itself. I'll round that up real quick. I got busted on the platform. I didn't have a ticket. They gave me a fine. Now, they also took my bike, and I was pissed off that they had taken my bike. I couldn't get around, obviously, easily without the bike, and I didn't have money for a rapid ticket, so they gave me a court date, and I was supposed to come into that court date and pay a fine, but I said, fuck them. They took my bike. I'm pissed off at them. I didn't go. And then I called them a couple days after. I called the clerk of courts to ask, well, what's going on now? Do I have a warrant out for me? I wanted to know if I had a warrant out for my arrest so that I could go pick up my bike, because I was scared that if I go pick up my bike, they're going to bust me on the spot, put me back in jail, which I had just recently been in jail for a few days just recently before that. So that was like a whole slew of values in play that were frightening me about that. And I call her, and she goes ahead, she tells me, well, you showed up. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you showed up to the court and you paid your fine. And I was like, okay, later, click, and just left it at that. But apparently some doppelganger had gone to my court date and paid the fine for me that I was entirely unaware of. That was pretty weird. But anyways, so that's one of the values in play regarding that I didn't want to boost the rapid. So I go and I wait for Richard, but he wakes up late. He doesn't show up to the rapid station on time. And so I decided, well, I'm going to wait a train for him to see if he'll show up. And I waited and let one of the trains pass. And then the second train that came, I had like 20 minutes to get to work. And it's a pretty long walk from the station to work. So I was like, fuck this, I'm going to have to boost it. So I jumped on that train and I went to work. And as it happens, there was a girl on that train that works with me. She works on the third floor in a different department. She's like a temp for, I guess she's just fresh out of college, and she's going to do a certain, I'm not going to say what she's doing, but what she is doing actually makes her a target asset for us, somebody who could be very beneficial to our projects, and she seems interested. I started talking to her about it and just bullshitting with her. I also started talking to her about the recent COPPA thing on YouTube that's kind of fucking us over, because we actually just got our niece and nephew interested in the channel, and now they're not going to be able to watch it anymore because we have to designate it for kids or not, which gets to the bottom of our investigation into the targeting of YouTube channels, but that's for another video. So anyways, I talk to this girl, I get along with her, and the thing is that she and I have this like immediate rapport where it seems like we've known each other before. We're very familiar and we get along very well, and that was awesome. Also, she started like making fun of me because I would say things about like religion, and she would laugh at me. I said, well, the religious people don't like us very much, don't like what we do, and she started laughing at me. She's like, I'll bet they don't. Like, she knows what we're doing somehow, but she doesn't really know. She doesn't really know what we're doing, but somehow she intuited that, yes, we'd be in that position, and she started laughing at me for it. And then I went ahead and I said something to the effect of, well, we deal with the vegan community too, but they're a bunch of weirdos. Like, the vegan community, they're primarily seem to be like heavy activists for their cause, and it's just a very strange people to deal with. And she kind of chuckled at it and let it slide. So then I go to work, I do my shift, I get off, I leave, I'm supposed to do the damn silverware, so they call me back. So I go back, I do the silverware, and actually they went ahead and they kind of like hazed me for a minute there because I left them hanging. They made me do some extra shit, kind of pushed me around, and made me spend a certain amount of time there that I would not have spent otherwise. But then when I left there, when I finally finished up, I just happened to walk out right when that girl walked out, so I walked her back to the train station. Again, that's an instance of synchronicity twice in a day that happened just because of the very particular timing in play. And I walked her back, and not only might she be a target asset, but she's also interested in adopting one of the kittens that my mom has here. So that, you know, it all fit together. It's an awesome synchronicity. But as it happens, we're sitting on the train. I thought that this girl was being kind of snobby to me, like looking down her nose at me and kind of blowing me off, but really she turned out to be just very shy, because she like kind of meandered up to me on the train. She's like, "Is it okay if I sit next to you?" I'm like, "You're my buddy now, you're supposed to sit next to me." And she sat next to me, started talking. She offered me this like green pea chip thing, and I noticed that she had this like vegan snack food, and I was like, "Oh man, you're one of them, aren't you?" And she's like, "Yep, I'm a vegan." I'm like, "Damn, you're one of the weirdos. I'm sorry I was making fun of you." And we had that conversation, but actually that puts her right there as a lead. She works as an in for the vegan community. Her job places her in a position of being a very heavily, like a primary target asset, a very potentially heavy asset for the initiative in general. And she's cute and she's cool, and just it was very fun to meet her. It happened via those synchronicities, so that was super interesting. But what I wanted to mention, the values in play regarding the plates, and why I didn't want my coworkers to mention it to my boss, which they did, and now that's in play, and I'm seeing the resounding results of it already, is that, you know, a lot of people, as I was saying in the previous video, a lot of people, especially in the metaphysical or spiritual communities, even in the psychological communities, even though these people should know better than to say this, they're going to say shit like, "Well, don't pass judgment on people. I don't judge people. It's not good to judge people." Well, firstly, it is good to judge people. You really need to be doing that. You don't want to jump into anything without judging someone based on the merits of their presentation, their activities, their employment status, whatever happens to come into play that regards this person as an entity. You need to be passing judgment on that. You can't just go all willy-nilly jumping into relationships. Passing judgments is, you know, it's not an inherently bad thing to judge people. What is good or bad about it is determinable in the sense that, you know, how you go about passing judgment. In what way do you judge people? Based on what merits or traits do you pass judgment on people? That's what matters. But B, everybody does. There's nobody in the world that doesn't judge people. You judge everyone all the time. You're constantly judging everyone. And again, this is a good thing to do because you need to assess your situation. I think it's just kind of a stupid idea to go about even suggesting that you don't judge people, let alone trying not to pass judgment on people, because again, A, that's a mistake. You need to be doing that. B, you're not succeeding. You're lying. If you say that you don't judge people, you're just lying. It's not a bad thing. It's not something to be thrown away. But the thing is that everybody does judge everybody inherently, innately, automatically, autonomically even. So where it comes to me having broken the plates, for example, there are so many values attached to that instance, implications. A, I was really sad about it. I kind of broke down about it. I freaked out, cried in the bathroom. They knew that this happened. That's showing signs of weakness. That's showing signs of damage. That's putting into play values that are reflective of me in a poor light, that reflect me in a poor manner, and come across poorly. And B, this is going to be the initial assessment. This is my first impression. First impressions are lasting. We've been through this before in other videos. First impressions are lasting throughout the duration. It is very, very difficult to alter what values you put into play, what implications are set and established in your initial first impression. Say the first few days on a job, that's the person you are. That's who they're going to see from there on out. And it doesn't matter what you do, because everything you do, any values you put into play from that point forward are going to be assessed as they are judged in comparison or relative to the initial first impression, which in this case is broken, breaking things, damaged, sad, somewhat out of control, losing my shit, fucking up, being a little crazy and out there because I've been up forever, and I was feeling, I was kind of manic at this point. I was very happy about the situation. I even expressed to them at one point that I'm giddy, I'm happy because of what my boss had said to me. I told them I'm just excited about this. It makes me happy to hear that. So it got me manic, we got me broken, we got me breaking things, making mistakes, we got me freaking out because of them. It's just all of these initial first impression values are in play now, and those implications are resounding. And now that my boss knows this, she kind of has seen this secondhand even. Now she has those values in play in her set. Now, again, as we tried to say in the previous video, there's no such thing as a permanent set. It's never going to happen. You can alter even the first impression, even values and implications that are put into play, aspects of your identity that are put into play and established throughout the course of your formative years can be altered. Anything can be altered, but the first impression, that's going to be exceptionally difficult to alter. And again, regardless of whether they try to or not, regardless of whether they want to or not, people that you, especially people you're working with, they're going to be passing judgment on you moment to moment to moment based on that initial first impression relative to the values that you put in play in that initial assessment. So now that's what I'm reflected as. That's the judgment that is reflecting on me, is how that happened. And now I've got to bust my ass to work through that and to alter it and to try and reestablish myself as somebody that is more prominent and more engaged and more pronounced and less just wacky and out of fucking control, I guess you could say. But that's pretty much the values I wanted to get across in that, is that yes, we are passing judgments. Everybody's passing judgments. You are having people passing judgment on you, and you're constantly putting values in play. Once you establish a first impression, the values that you put into play thereafter are going to be judged relative to that first impression. So that's something you want to watch out for, something you want to be very careful with, especially where it regards employment. This job I'm going to fight like hell to keep, and we'll see what happens. But I mean, that's going to be a tough one to break through. Of course, I'm accepting it as a challenging opportunity to be most excellent, especially with this beautiful young lady now there who I have somebody to impress. I have somebody specific that I'd like to be impressive for, so that puts into play a value that's very motivating and inspiring to me personally, and that's the way it's always been with anything having to do with the initiative or it's always been some special girl, some lady that I want to be impressive for. That pushes me, motivates me to be as excellent as I possibly can, and again, excellence is a habit. So, if you can manage to make use of that as a habit, perhaps your first impressions will be just that, excellence. Something else that I wanted to note was the time factor. I love being at work. I take great pride in any work that I'm doing when I'm on the job. I'm pretty much kind of relaxed. I mean, there's a tension involved in this one, especially in this job, having to move very fast and get things done very fast and do a lot of thinking, because I have to watch out for what the food the residents get. I have to watch out for what's on their tray. I have to watch out for what might be damaging to them if they have allergies and such. I have to be on the spot with that. And again, it's moving very fast down the line. So that's one aspect of the job that I'm doing, is watching out for the residents' health and what they're receiving insofar as concerns their dietary considerations. But usually, as I've said so many times before, I have applied attention, applied a certain level of stress to everything that I'm doing in order to stretch out the time. Now, what happens when I go, say, for example, on the job, in most cases, if I'm doing the job well and I feel good about it, that's where I'm comfortable, that's where I'm relaxed, and so that's where that stress is relieved, when I'm on the job. And so what happens with the time factor is that, like a stretched out rubber band, that time snaps back. And it gets to the point where, like, say, for example, one time I went out to smoke a cigarette. I went out, I hit a cigarette, I smoked like half of it, not even the full cigarette. I came right back in, I rushed it. and my boss is telling me, well, you've been gone for like 20 minutes. I'm like, there's no fucking way that happened. But it did. It happened because the time I had been stretching out all this time working with the initiative. When I get on the job, I get comfortable, I get relaxed, that time snaps back, and suddenly time is being spent very quickly in short bursts. So that's something else to look out for. Anybody who wants to work with that bending time or warping time ability. I do believe it might be exclusive perhaps to blues, but definitely I think to people who are utilizing the Kundalini impulse, this might not be something that you can make so effective use of without having activated that impulse and maintained it, and perhaps even being inherently a blue, although this is a trait that you can assimilate. Again, there is no permanent set. You may have initial first example impressions in play, but you can alter them. You just have to be conscious, be aware, be lucid as regards what values you are making use of and what values you have in play to make alterations to at any given point in time. You can go ahead and do that, and it's something that you want to be paying close attention to, because ultimately, even as regards a job, it's not even so much dependent. Your stature or your standing in that area, it's not going to be so heavily your presence, your stature is not going to be so heavily discerned by the work that you do, even so much as it is discerned by the impressions that you have in play. So you could be doing an excellent job, and people are going to be looking down on you because their first impression is negative, and they're judging you based on that. The best they might think of you is, oh, well, he's doing all right today. You want to try and alter those impressions. I can't really think of any examples to give right now as regards this particular area of interest, but I'm thinking people might, you might be able to come up with your own ideas. Just be excellent. Excellence is a habit. And that's all. I have another video I have to make, and I have some errands I have to run, so I'm going to clip this one here. I hope that covered it, that was the story. We'll get to the reincarnation. I'll actually do a whole series on reincarnation. I plotted that out already and promised it to a few people even, but for now, we'll wait on Sweetie Cheeks for that. Get the other videos done. I am, in fact, in a hurry, and I have just a short span of time off to make use of, so I'm going to do the most that I can for you guys. Of course, I'll be in the groups. I'll be active all over the place, and I'll be making another video as soon as is possible. So, thank you all for watching. Kila Salai, Teriyuni Siari, Namaste.